Whoa, buddy. Put that thing back in its holster. We haven't gone anywhere.
I don't understand.
Check out the MichaelDukesShow.com for information on how to get access to the podcast.
Welcome to the party, pal.
The Michael Dukes Show.
The greed and the entitlement is astounding to me.
What more could you want from a low-budget radio program?
This is a dumpster fire.
That was just BS.
It is time to get a new perspective.
We know just what you need, and we've got just the cure. Open wide and prepare for a steaming hot cup of freedom.
I just don't fathom it.
The Michael Dukes Show, streaming live across the world.
Live around the world on the internet at michaeldukeshow.com and across the state of Alaska on this your favorite radio station and or FM translator. Hello and good morning to you, my friends. It's Thursday. Man, it is... Oh, I'm so tired. I don't know what the deal is. I don't know what's going on, but man, holy cow. Feel like somebody's been beating me with sticks this morning. Getting ready to do it. We are we're gathering up here for today's show, and there's a lot going on. There's a lot going on. The House yesterday passed their education bill. Yep, they sure did. $1,000 BSA and $275 million added to the old bill for the year, and that was after they got a new revenue forecast that was $70 million worse than they expected, meaning they're going to be short even more. It's wow. I mean, it's just it's astonishing. And 3 members of the minority jumped on board and voted for it. Now, it's not over yet. The Senate still has to have their bite at the apple. We're going to talk about that here this morning as we get ready to go along here. We're also going to talk about the escalating tariff war with Canada and how it affects Alaska, and some suggestions from Senator Dan Sullivan, who is pushing on a new federal law, or pushing back on a federal law, I should say, to try and get a waiver for it. We're gonna discuss that. Things going on. The mayor of Palmer is about to be recalled. What else is on the agenda? Oh, the that snow machine, that daring snow machine rescue yesterday out by Paxson. The young kids who are challenging the gas pipeline, which may or may not happen, but they're expending tremendous resources to try and stop it. 8 young Alaskans in a lawsuit. We'll talk about that. And more. It's all going on in hour 1. In hour 2, we're going to be talking with the Fairbanks North Starborough School District President, Melissa Burnett. I'm sure she'll be speaking in her capacity as a private citizen. I'm sure she's not going to be officially speaking to us as the school board president, but she will probably be giving us her insight as a private citizen. We don't want any more ethics complaints. All right. So we'll see what she has to say on that, and we'll see if she gives us a disclaimer at the beginning that I mean, really, it's just it's wild. Also, let's see, tomorrow for Firearms Friday, we've got a full boat for Firearms Friday with Dr. John Lott joining us in hour 1. And then in hour 2, we'll be joined by Chris Chang, and we'll be finishing up with Willie Waffle for our Waffle movie entertainment news and streaming review, et cetera, et cetera. So that's going to be tomorrow. And then on Monday, I hate to tell you, but I'm going to be off on Monday because I'm going to be in the air. I will be airborne. I'll be traveling back from Fairbanks. This whole coordination thing, the further I get away from Fairbanks, the more difficult it becomes. I mean, because I didn't realize now that I'm down in Homer, having to try to get to Fairbanks in a timely manner is a little more difficult. It used to be that I would just climb in my car and drive, quite honestly, because it was a 5-hour deal. But now, of course, you can't, it's a lot longer. And so catching an airplane and making all the connecting flights and everything else, and it was just, so I actually will be done in Fairbanks on Sunday, but I won't be flying back until Monday morning because that's how the flights all line up. Anyway, so I will be airborne during showtime on Monday morning. And so you'll be listening to alternate programming wherever you're listening. And I mean, not on Facebook, YouTube, or Rumble. There will be no alternate programming. You'll just have to live with the podcast or to rewatch an old show or, whatever it is out there. So it's there you go. There you go. That's all coming up for tomorrow and Monday. And then we'll be back on the air first thing Tuesday morning to tackle the weekly top 3. That'll be fun. That will be fun. Okay. So what can we do here, my friends? There's a lot to cover. I want to get to this the school funding bill. I don't know what to say about what's happening right now, because it seems like there's just this rampant amount of madness that everybody just seems to want to pretend that no matter what we do, it'll be okay. It'll be fine. All right, I'm going to get to that. I'm going to put that off for a few minutes and get to that. First, let's talk about what's going on with the escalating tariff war between Canada and the U.S. I know it's not Canada. You guys, come on. So, Dan Sullivan, he got into the middle of this. And according to Ira Samuels over at the ADN, he has issued a threat to Canadian officials. During an interview he did on the Picaro show on Tuesday, he threatened He said he would seek a waiver to a law that requires cruise ships to stop in Canada when traveling from the lower 48 to Alaska. Now, this is the companion piece to the Jones Act, and it's called the passenger vessel. Oh hell, I can't remember what it's called. Anyway, it's the Jones Act affects freight, and this act affects passenger ships. Passenger vessel. Somebody is going to help me out in the chat room with what it's called again. I told you guys this morning I'm not 100% here. You'll have to forgive me. Anyway, and so essentially what it says is that you can't have a direct port-to-port connection from American ports on ships that are not built and or flagged and or crewed by Americans. So if you're going to take a ship directly from Seattle to Anchorage, for example, or Seattle to Homer or wherever, it would have to be on a ship that was built in America by Americans, flagged under the American flag, and crewed by Americans, right? The passenger vessel. Anyway. Okay. So the answer to this was, for the big cruise ships and everything else, was they would stop in BC. They'd stop in Vancouver or some other port on the way up. Therefore, they would no longer are they going from American port to American port. They would be stopping and then heading up. So Sullivan said he would seek a waiver to that law just days after the president imposed tariffs on Canada. The move came after British Columbia Prime Minister David Eby said he would introduce legislation to place tolls on commercial trucks traveling from the lower 48 to Alaska. So we're playing this game of chicken. Now, this isn't the first time that this has happened. The U.S. had created an exemption for this law back in 2021 during COVID, because Canada was like, no, you can't park it here, no way, The Passenger Vessels Service Act. Thank you. Thank you. The Passenger Vessels Service Act, Rob. Thank you. Rob Myers in the chat room hooking me up like a tow truck because, So that's what it was. They did a waiver during the pandemic because Alaska, tourism was about to crater hard because Canada was not going to allow anybody to step foot in Canada during the lockdowns and everything else. So they wrote an exemption and they just bypassed Canada and went on their merry way to Alaska. So anyway, this is a way to basically give the middle finger to Canada to say, hey, look, you don't want to play, you don't want. In fact, Sullivan, this is the quote from the radio show, Canada, you don't want to mess with Alaska. If you do, we're going to work hard on having our cruise ships bypass your port, and that'll help our economy tremendously. It'll help our tourism tremendously, and it'll really hurt your tourism. So, I know there's a lot of strutting and striding back and forth across the barnyard going on this. I find it kind of interesting. I did watch a little bit of the commentary yesterday from the premier of Ontario, I believe, where they were, because as soon as the president did the tariffs, then Ontario increased the price of electricity that they were shipping across the border to some of the northern states in the Northeast. They increased it by, 25% or something. And so Trump said, okay, let's just double the tariffs on steel and aluminum out of Canada. And so it's just going to get this chip. It's this, bit. And so then the premier of Ontario said, no, we're going to meet with them and I've instructed them to reduce that electric price back down. And there's a lot of shoveling going on. What's interesting, though? President Trump at one point did say, okay, look, let's all just get together and we'll just eliminate all tariffs. How about that? We'll just zero all the tariffs out. I like that idea. What do you think? Crickets from the other side, which kind of vindicates some of the things that he's been saying about, the fairness of, how fair are the tariffs when they've got an unequal advantage. And that's been his argument for why he wanted to put these tariffs in the first place. Now, I'm not a fan of tariffs overall, but he does have a point. If he's willing to go, look, we'll just do no tariffs between our two countries. How about that? And they look at him like, well, no, I mean, we don't like your tariffs, but we do like ours. So we're not going to do, I mean, you could see where this is going. So anyway, Sullivan is now proposing to do this. He said Congress could pass that law exempting the cruise ships from the mandatory stop in Canada, or ask the president to issue an exemption by executive order, which is exactly what happened during COVID, if I recall correctly. And again, Rob Myers, who's been following this a lot closer than I have and has a better memory at this point, this time in the morning than I do, can remind me. I believe that Biden just issued an executive order. I don't think Congress got involved in that one. It was a short-term executive order. Now, give credit where credit is due. At that time, when that happened back in 2021, Lisa Murkowski introduced a bill to make that change permanent, arguing that the requirement, quote, unintentionally put many Alaskan businesses at the mercy of the Canadian government. So, I mean, even a stop clock is right twice a day. So thank you, Lisa Murkowski, for doing that. It didn't go anywhere because, again, there are so many vested interests in the government that are tied and baked into some of these laws. The Passenger Vessel Service Act, the Jones Act, these have been, around for, there's a lot of constituencies here. And of course, we're the ones that are paying the price for a lot of that. Not just us, but we pay, I would say, a disproportionate price here in Alaska than they do in other parts of the nation. Some of the coastal states definitely feel the Jones Act effect. We were talking about, having to buy gas from Russia and not being able to get Gulf port gas up into the East Coast and some of these other things because of this act. We do more harm to ourselves than good. But I would say that this, I mean, why not? First of all, I would support this not for hurting Canada, not for trying to, put a tougher squeeze on Canada over the tariffs thing. I would do this simply because it's better for Alaska. And, I hate to say it, but we should look out for ourselves first in this regard. We should be doing this. I mean, they would save any money that they might spend in Canada, they could now spend in Alaska. I'm all about that. Maybe you add an extra stop somewhere down. I mean, I don't know where these cruise ships stop. I'm assuming they stop in Ketchikan. Maybe they stop in Juneau. Maybe, I don't know where they stop. But, all the way up to Seward, hey, let's do it, baby. This is the all-American tour. We're all just going to stop everywhere that's America. And if it's someplace else, we just don't do it. So I think this is, although I have to love he threatens, he issued a threat to Canadian officials. I'm going to destroy you. No, it just, it's a nice town you got there. It'd be a shame if we bypassed it. That's how I look at it anyway. So, yeah, I mean, to me, this is a good start. The Passenger Vessel Services Act gets superseded or gets waived. Make that permanent. And then let's talk about the Jones Act, shall we? I think we should. We should talk about the Jones Act. All right, we got to go. We're going to be back with more in a minute. The Michael Duke Show. Up next, I guess we're going to talk about this education thing. I don't want to get too angry, but I could feel it. Back with more right after this.
If you missed the show, you can listen to it on your time with Dukes on Demand. Oh, and it's free. Like America used to be. Streaming live every weekday morning on Facebook Live and MichaelDukesShow.com.
Okay. All right. So Rob corrects me again. Thanks, Rob. Took a congressional act. I thought that Biden had just issued an executive order. I know that there have been executive orders that have been issued for places like Puerto Rico and other things, declarations of emergency, et cetera. But it did take a congressional act to suspend the PVSA for a period of time there. There you go. He'll do Picaro, but not you. I mean, he's been on the program. He was on the program here not too long ago. But yeah, it's fine. Brian says, I've listened to a lot of Michael Duke show in the airport over the years. Just through the podcast or what? I mean, oh, hey, Melissa says, she says the disclaimer's coming. Okay, let me scroll. Now I can scroll. Now I got back to the good mornings. The good mornings. Although Jeannie does point out, and that's what I said, it hasn't passed the Senate or the governor yet. She's talking about the education bill. So we'll see what goes on from there. Okay. What, you're off on Monday? What about the children? You hate the children, don't you? Yes, I hate children. Hate them. Just hate them with a passion. No, I'm going to be in the air. I think they would frown on me setting up all my equipment in the aisle of the airliner. And I don't think that their Wi-Fi would hold up to what we need to do here on that, David says, note how many retired and active teachers are in the House of Representatives. Yeah, I mean, it's a jobs bill. We all know that. It's a jobs bill. Anthony says, a war with Canada conceptually makes me chuckle out loud. So the country of old break-over action shotguns and grandpappy's bolt actions thinks they can bully an American state? An American state crazy with cabin fever and one of the highest firearms per capita in the entire country? Hold my beer. Canuckistan. Good morning. How about we stop funding the Alaska highway through Canada, says Chris. Well, I mean, I know we're spending a pretty penny on that and keeping a lot of that. You're right. Maybe we just say, okay, if you're going to start charging a toll, then you can pay for it. How about that? Good morning. Frank says, so let me get this straight. Sullivan is only interested in amending the Jones Act because of tourism, not for the benefit of Alaskans. No, I mean, first of all, it's not the Jones Act. I need to be clear. It's the PVSA, Passenger Vessel Service Act, it's kind of the companion piece to the Jones Act, but it's not the same. And I think Sullivan's trying to just take a bigger stand on it. It would help Alaskans because otherwise they're going to, they're going to hinder us. So yeah, we might as well do it. Let's see. Okay. Lord, please don't let Canada continue this nonsense, says Jeannie. I'm afraid Dukesters will show them what an uprising is. No, I mean, what are you going to, it's Canada, eh? What are you going to do? Let's see. Okay. It's amazing. Cult. Yesterday, Harold was singing the praises of the presidents and being able to, bring Russia to the table and all the stuff. And today he's back to, it's a cult if you like the president or like what he's doing. So, I mean, it's, there you go. It's an episode of South Park, says Melissa. Blame Canada. Yes. I love it. All right, here we go, my friends. Let's get back to it. The Michael Duke Show. Common sense, liberty-based, free-thinking radio. Like, share, subscribe, ring the bell. Let's do it.
public enema number one. Oh, wait, sorry. Public enemy number one, which makes more sense. On the other hand, he's a little bit of a pain in the Michael Duke show.
All righty then. Let's continue. Let's continue on here. So we'll let you know what the we'll let you know what happens with the PVSA and whether or not the president is going to do. I don't know. This tariff war could escalate. It could not. But people could get back to it. But we'll keep you in the loop on that. Madness did reign supreme yesterday in the Alaska House of Representatives as they advanced that school funding bill, HB 69, over any objection about the cost of it. The estimated cost for this $1,000 BSA increase is about $275 million a year, every year moving forward. The only good news on this is that they didn't peg it to inflation, and they didn't put any other escalators, in it. The bad news is that now we are on the hook for an additional $250 million plus every year moving forward. Now, there were were a couple policy changes, which we'll get into here in just a minute. But you could see some of the lies continually being perpetrated and perpetuated on the floor from some of these representatives who are out there just, they're laying the groundwork for more of the same. I'm sorry, I need the quote that I highlighted. Here we go. Himshoot, who is the author of the bill. And remember, this is the same gal that got up there and said, how did you pick the $1,808, numbers? We just went for everything we wanted. We went how much if we wanted everything, essentially. Pie in the sky. That's what she essentially said before. And she got up on the floor to wax philosophical about this bill. And she said the following. They have cut the fat. They have cut the flesh. And we are now cutting into the bone of our education system. To which I say, what cut? Where did they cut education? They didn't. In fact, education spending has increased. Now, maybe it hasn't increased as much as you want, but it has increased every year. And we got the one-time funding, we've got the BSA, we've now cutting into the bone of our edge. Of course, this is all wrapped around the mental gymnastics of saying because they didn't increase the BSA by the amount that the majority wanted, and now because of inflation, they're actually receiving less. But that's not how, I don't know if you know this, but that's not how math works. You could say that your buying power is less, and it could actually, it is actually less. We've seen inflationary measures. But to say that we've cut, that's not the same as, but again, a lie oft repeated becomes the truth, right? She also said that this is not the education system we want for our kids, and it's not producing the outcomes we want. Well, the question becomes then, because I would agree, this is not the education system we want for our kids, and it's not producing the outcomes we want. I hope it's not, because, again, 51 out of 53 jurisdictions, we're number 51 I hope that's not what you're looking for. But the question that's not being asked is money going to solve this problem? The good news is that they were able to pare a big chunk of this off, not half, although they keep talking about having it. It was $1,808 to begin with, and they got it down to $1,000. So it's not quite half, but there you go. And there was a bunch of amendments on the floor. There was, passionate speeches back and forth against it. The House Republicans in the minority said their policies, priorities were not reflected in the package. Justin Ruffridge said, I think we actually have a lot more work to do on it, and he made a motion to send the package back to the Education Committee, and that failed along party lines. Mia Costello said, I support a permanent increase to the BSA. However, this version of the bill is not achievable. And again, it didn't go anywhere. And they continued to try and make amendments. Now, there were some amendments that made it into the measure during the 2 days of debate. One requires the governor to introduce a school funding bill each year separate from the budget, which that's an interesting, I haven't read the justification or the whereases or anything else. Let's shall we do that? We should do that right now. Let's just do that right now. We'll do it together. We'll discover this together. What the whereases and everything else says on it. Well, there's no whereas. It's just a line. Okay. So it says relating to the duty of the legislature, relating to the duty of the governor. So there's no whereases or why, what the justification is, but it is amendment number 23. And it basically would say the governor has to, again, introduce a school funding bill each year separate from the budget. The second one, which we talked about with Will Stapp yesterday, which he questioned whether or not it would pass the constitutional sniff test, said that the legislature has to fund the schools by March 15th to better match school district budget cycles. Which again comes back to time compression as a weapon and an artificial timeline, which all plays into the hands of the education establishment and the educational, the industry, the schooling industry. Because that's what they've been doing. They've been maneuvering things behind the scenes for years to make sure that all the budgets in the various communities line up so that they're all putting pressure on the state right when the state's starting to work on the budget, because they make sure that their budgets are due just before that. So it's a thing. It's a thing. So those two amendments made it in, but nothing else really made it in there. There were some of the policy priorities that came out. They had sought extra funding for homeschooled students. That was zeroed out. They wanted the provisions to expand charter schools. That was torpedoed. And they wanted a proposal to limit the class size. That was, again, summarily cacked in the head. And when it was all said and done, when it was all said and done, they put it to the vote. And the House majority only had a 1-seat margin, but 3 members of the minority crossed over and voted for the package, $275 million. Representative Jeremy Bynum of Ketchikan, Representative Julie Colomb of Anchorage, and Representative Justin Ruffridge of Soldotna all crossed the aisle and voted with the package. Now, again, Justin had he was trying to make amendments, trying to get it back. So I don't know. 200, because nobody is asking the question except for, again, my new personal hero, Will Stapp, who's like, guys, we've Houston, we have a problem. He said there is no reliable funding source for this bill. He said, right now we're about to write a check we can't cash and it's going to bounce on the other end. He suggested new taxes or that the permanent fund dividend would need to be eliminated to fund the measure, which is what he talked about yesterday. He's like, I know it's not popular when I talk about that, but I'm trying to show people that we cannot be all things to all people. Now, the only piece of good news out of this whole thing is that this is not the last word. It's now headed over to the Senate. The Senate is going to take it up. They have signaled support for a much smaller boost. They said they'd be comfortable with doing what they did last year, which was a $175 million boost. Now, it was one-time funding that they did. Whether or not that they would put that boost in permanently, as in under the BSA line, is a question. But again, the biggest question that comes out of that is how do you pay for it in the long run? Especially given that yesterday they also got the bad news in the updated state forecast for revenue forecast that there was a $70 million downgrade in oil revenue starting on July 1st. So it's $70 million worse than we thought it was to begin with. And then after it goes through the Senate, then it's got to go to the governor. And the governor has already said, well, he had priorities. He wanted the expanded charter school. He wanted he said last week that there had been positive movement at the House education package, that they've been working behind the scenes and some stuff, but there's no guarantee that he's going to sign off on this. And it's unknown whether or not they'd have enough votes to override a veto. So we're going to have to see what the Senate does with this. But again, the biggest question becomes, how do we pay for it? And pay for everything else that we've been paying for at the same time. How do we do it? And of course, I just love the answers from, we just got to do it. We just got to do it. We've got to, we just, whatever it takes. There's a lot of wishful thinking going on in the legislature. I just got to be honest with you. There's a lot of wishful thinking that it just doesn't apply to us and we've got to do it. And I don't know. I don't know what happens from here. Other than, I guess, we'll see what the Senate does, and then whether or not Big Mike will allow it to go through. We'll have to see what that looks like. All right, we got to go. The Michael Duke Show. Common sense, liberty-based, free-thinking radio.
If you missed the show, you can listen to it on your time with Dukes On Demand. Oh, and it's free. Like America used to be. Streaming live every weekday morning on Facebook Live and MichaelDukesShow.com.
I mean, it's gonna be angry. It's gonna be interesting. All right. We cut to the bone is going to be the same phrase they used in the next hour, says Frank. Yeah, it was actually closer to $2,400 with all the inflation proving clause that everyone missed, said Kevin. That was the original proposal. It's huge. It's huge. What was that? Rob said, by that argument, of the cutting to the bone argument that Himshoot made, we've cut every department except maybe corrections. because they haven't kept up with inflation on the funding mechanisms. Poshwa. See, this is the thing that I don't get about Harold. He talks about the billions in the oil giveaway, which, I mean, you and I agree on that, Harold. I mean, I agree that there's money on the table. So I don't know why you're arguing with me on that. But he says, then you're whining about the $230 million to educate our kids. Yet you rail on this program day in and day out about how giving the money just to the BSA is a waste. So on the one hand, you talk out of one side of your mouth about how it's a waste, and then you're like chastising us for complaining about the $230 million that is a waste. He's a conundrum wrapped up into a fortune cookie. Harold is more bipolar than my ex-wife, and that says a lot. Interesting. Anthony says, hell yeah, we're trying to cut to the bone of the education system. Kind of hard to amputate a gangrenous appendage without doing so, just saying. Yeah. I mean, that's the thing. If the Democrats understood words, they'd be very angry with Michael right now. They understand. Okay. I'm going through here. More money is not the answer. Look at Steubenville, Ohio. Low income, one parent, no parent homes, high reading proficiency because they're doing the right thing. I mean, it's the same thing in Mississippi, right? Some of the lowest per capita spend in the country, and yet they have leaped out of the bottom of the achievements, and they're skyrocketing towards the top. Yeah. Alaska's in deep doo-doo. Price of oil will go way down while spending goes way up, which is par for the course. That's the thing. Par for the course. What the hell was Rep. Colomb thinking, says David. I don't know. I don't know. I really don't. Well, he went over to her Facebook page. Friends and neighbors today, HB 69 passed the House and has now moved to the Senate. You have my respect and gratitude for having the hard conversations with me and your school board members to ensure that the increased funding in this proposal directly supports teachers and students in the classroom. That's why I voted yes. Well, there's no guarantee that it's going to directly support teachers and students. There was no amendment that. All right. We'll have to see. We'll have to see what's going on. The point of order, says Kevin, the points of order raised by the rules chair concerning even mentioning the PFD were wildly well out of order and indicate how much of the PFD they know is going to be going to take to fund this bill. Yeah, I mean, that's part of the problem. You can't mention the PFD during the discussion. You can't mention where the money is coming from. They're terrified. They know they're going to have to go on record with this vote. And quite honestly, that's how you're going to have to frame it if you want to run against them in the future. Yeah. Terry says Ruffridge is driving the whole caucus through Mia Costello. He's a master manipulator. Really? I don't know. Must use performance overtime to grade schools rather than one-time SAR scores. I think I'm late to the party today. Melissa says, I'm late to the party. I've read that HB 69 takes away from the option of homeschooling through our district programs. Did I read that right? No, I think that was one of the fears, but that's not how I'm reading it at this point. So, I mean, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe somebody wants to correct me. Kevin can correct me, maybe. But we'll have to see. All right, we're jumping back into it. Here we go. One final segment dead ahead, and then we jump into this with Melissa.
The Michael Duke Show. Seriously humorous with a pinch of intellect. Sorry. That is humorous. Here's Michael Dukes.
All right. We are... We're moving ahead. I'm still reading the chat room comments. I'm not even caught up yet. There's a lot of things going on. All right. We just finished up, talking about, but we can still continue on this whole thing with the House Bill 69 is again, ignoring the simple reality that we are continuing to spend more than we take in. We have no idea how we're going to pay for this bill. And again, kudos to Will Stapp from Fairbanks, who pointed out yet again that there is no reliable funding source for this bill. Right now, we're about to write a check we can't cash, and it's going to bounce on the other end. They're not talking about it. There was no new fiscal note. That was something he mentioned yesterday. We haven't seen an updated fiscal note on it. So what's it going to cost? Nobody knows. I mean, you can guess. Anyway, maybe they got a new fiscal note by the time it hit the floor yesterday, but and they all get up there and just say, think of the children. And then Julie Colomb voting for it. And somebody said, what was she thinking? Well, they went out and she actually posted up on her Facebook page after the vote and said, friends and neighbors, today HB 69 passed the House and has now been moved to the Senate. You have my respect and gratitude for having the hard conversations with me and your school board members to ensure that the increased funding in this proposal directly supports teachers and students in the classroom. This is why I voted yes. But I didn't. Was there a provision in there that required that the funding be directly supporting teachers and students in the classroom? I certainly didn't hear anything about that. I didn't hear any amendments was it just a pat on the head and assurances? Of course we'll do that, dear. Was there because remember, there used to be a provision that 70% of that stuff had to go into the classroom. So was there a provision added somewhere that I didn't read about? Because, let's face it, I didn't listen to the whole thing. I'm working. I didn't have time to listen to their caterwauling for 2 whole days. But nobody wrote about a provision that would have ensured that the increased funding goes directly to support teachers and students. I've got questions. I know Julie has complained that we chastise her on the show and we take her to task on the show and we have disagreements with her on the show. And that's why she's hesitant to come on, because we beat her up. But you have my respect for having the conversations to ensure that the increased funding in this proposal directly supports teachers and students in the classroom. That is why I voted yes. What assurance? Is there an assurance in law? Is there an amendment that said this must be spent directly in the classroom or supporting? If there is not a provision that I'm unaware of, and it very well could be, because there's a lot of things that I'm unaware of. If there is not a provision that was proposed either in committee or on the floor as an amendment that directly states that this increase is going directly to support teachers and students in the classroom, even as flawed as that is, even as flawed as that idea could be, because again, we knew what happened before they killed the previous provision. They were throwing all kinds of stuff under classroom, quote unquote, the classroom category, right? they were counting a lot of things that were, I mean, but even taking that into account, if there is not a provision written into this through the amendment process somewhere, then this is not a valid excuse, in my opinion. To ensure that the increased funding in this proposal directly supports teachers and students in the classroom, this is why I voted yes. So let me scroll down here and just make sure to see if there's anything that did any of my legislators, did any of the legislators in there who were in the chat room this morning, Kevin, was there an amendment that put that stuff directly in the, I mean, what then if not, if there wasn't an amendment, then this is Pushwa, right? This is why I vote. If you just had somebody said, "Oh yes, dear, of course we'll spend it in the classroom," and they patted you on the head and you bought, that's not a guarantee. That's not insurance. That's not to, we wanted to ensure that the increased funding in this proposal directly supports teachers and students in the classroom. I'm not trying to beat up on Julie. I just want, if there was no assurances, again, in law, not a wink and a nod, why would you, and how do we pay for it? And then, of course, there was the points of order that were raised by the rule chair anytime anyone ever mentioned the PFD, that we shouldn't be talking about that. We're trying to fund a bill. They do not want that on camera. They do not want any discussion about how basically you're going to have to spend the PFD to make this happen. They do not want that on camera. Okay, well, we'll see what happens here. We will see what happens. All right. I'm just so agitated now. I'm just so agitated about I would have been better off if she had just not given a reason for voting. Because if it turns out that there was not some kind of concession given, if there was not some kind of concession or amendment made that guaranteed that new money, because that's what she said, this new funding, that if that new money was going to be spent directly in the classroom, again, as flawed as that whole phrase is, or in, that phraseology is, then it's a lie. I guess I was trying to find a way to be a little more polite about it, but it's just an excuse. I mean, just an excuse. Again, you have my respect and gratitude for having the hard conversations with me and your school board members to ensure that the increased funding in this proposal directly supports teachers and students in the classroom. This is why I voted yes. Okay, have the hard conversations with me and your school board members to ensure that the increase. So is she saying that the school board, that her school board that she represents in her district is made some kind of concession to her that they're going to spend the increased funding directly in the teachers? I mean, do we have that in writing? I have so many questions. I have a headache now. All right, we're going to continue. Melissa Burnett's coming up next. The Michael Duke Show. Common sense, liberty-based, free thinking radio. Oh, yeah. Kevin said he thought there may have been one bill that had that, but it was voted down. So what you're saying is that it's all an excuse. It's all an excuse. Okay. We've got to I'm trying to be nice, man. I don't like to be confrontational. And I know that every time we've had Julie back on the program after I took her to task that one day on her babysitting bill, her childcare thing, she's like, "Oh, she's like afraid because I took her to task and disagreed with her on it." She made mention of it several times. But Julie, this is why. And I know that her district is not as conservative as I guess you would think, or as we would like, and that her district is all okay with taking the PFD for all this kind of stuff, I guess. But don't just flat out. I mean, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe she's got it in writing. Maybe she's got emails back and forth with her and members of the school board or whatever. But this is what she says. You have my respect and gratitude for having the hard conversations with me and your school board members to ensure that the increased funding in this proposal directly supports teachers and students in the classroom. This is why I voted yes. What kind of commitments did you get on that? Because somebody could say, "Oh, yes, we'll do that. We'll do that. I'll do my best. I'll do my best, Julie, to make sure that it gets direct." And again, what is in the classroom and into the teachers? Because remember, back before 2017, before they axed that thing, they were including all kinds of things as classroom spending, IT support, principal salaries. I mean, all kinds of stuff was getting wrapped up in that. Oh my God. Okay. I should stop talking. I should stop talking about this. Becky Schwanke, Representative Schwanke just confirmed what Melissa had asked about, that they're not killing the homeschooling, out of district homeschooling programs, but their open enrollment is anything but. Yeah. Okay. Well, we'll see. We'll see what happens. I need to stop. All right, let's go over here. See what's going on. This is the perfect time to bring on Melissa Burnett, who's waiting, I'm sure, patiently in the wings and just can't wait to get involved in this hot mess. She's over here. Good morning. Are you laughing at me?
I'm dying laughing over here. I think you're about to lose your few last hairs that you have, sir. At least the ones on your head.
Thanks for bringing that up. I think blood should shoot out of my eyeball sockets at this point. I'm just like,
at least you get to end the weekend with some sled dogs. I mean,
I do get to end the weekend standing outside for 5 or 6 hours in the cold trying to broadcast. I gotta admit it to just you, me, and the 75 of our closest friends here on the internet, Melissa. I'm turning into a bit of a wuss. I don't like to stand around outside at 0 degrees anymore. It's just not as fun as it used to be when I was younger.
I have been watching the temperature closely. I mean, as old as you want to claim to be, even me, as young as I am, I'm sitting here going, man, why do we sign up to do this every year? Why do we agree to this?
Well, at least I would say, because I probably would have told, I still remember broadcasting that one year on downtown on 2nd Avenue when I was standing over on the balcony of River City Cafe. And it was 35 or 38 below. And then the wind was wrapping around the building right there. It was blowing between the buildings and blowing on me.
Yeah.
And so I stood there for 6 hours and it was probably 55 below with the wind chill. I'm still cold from that all those years ago.
I've been super fortunate. I've been
Yeah.
very lucky that all the years we've done this together, the coldest I stood out at the fairgrounds area was like 15 below. So.
Yeah. No, it's it's fine. We're gonna have a good time. It's gonna be a long weekend, but we're gonna have a good time and we're gonna do it. But we're ready to go. All right. So you ready to tackle all this hot mess?
Yeah, and I'll try to make you not lose any more hair.
Doesn't matter. I told Terry, I said, if it gets any worse, I'm just going to shave the whole thing bald and I'll just be beard and bald. That's what it'll
Hey,
be.
do it during St. Baldrick's. There you go.
Yeah, see, there you go. There you go. We can get it done. Yeah, what? Frank says, I think MD is in the Mushers Hall most of the time.
These days.
Have you no, I'm not inside. I'm on a platform outside the Mushers.
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks, Frank. Yeah.
Frank, he sits in a spot too at the Mushers Hall outside of it where the wind hits the roof just perfectly. And so not only is he getting the wind, he's being blasted in the face by snow. So
yeah,
he's the superhero here.
It's no big deal. It's no big deal. I did broadcast 1 year from inside. That was amazing. But hey, we'll get out of that right now. All right, we got to go. The Michael Duke Show, common sense, liberty-based, free thinking radio. Let's do it.
Whoa, buddy. Put that thing back in its holster. We haven't gone anywhere.
I don't understand.
Check out the MichaelDukesShow.com for information on how to get access to the podcast.
Welcome to the party, pal.
The Michael Dukes Show.
The greed and the entitlement is astounding to me.
What more could you want from a low-budget radio program?
This is a dumpster fire.
That was just BS.
It is time to get a new perspective.
We know just what you need, and we've got just the cure. Open wide and prepare for a steaming hot cup of freedom.
I just don't fathom it.
The Michael Dukes Show, streaming live across the world.
Live around the world on the interwebs at michaeldukeshow.com. It's a series of tubes, in case you didn't know. We are ready to go hour 2 of this big Thursday broadcast here. Jumping into it, just finished up talking about the madness that's going on in Juneau. I'm trying to bring my blood pressure back down. But we're going to continue on discussions about education. Melissa Burnett, who is the president of the Fairbanks North Scarborough School District School Board, is here with us. She's sitting in the green room, but I'm sure she's coming to speak as a private citizen. We don't want to get any, so we'll talk about that. But then before we do that, I just want to make sure if you're just joining us, good morning. First of all, good morning. Second of all, tomorrow, Firearms Friday, we'll be broadcasting from Fairbanks. Ooh, that'll be fun. We'll have Dr. John Lott, we'll have Chris Chang, and we'll have Willie Waffle tomorrow. Tomorrow's a full show. And on Monday, we're making up for Friday because I will be off the air because I will be flying. I'll be in the air mid-flight during the showtime on Monday. So there's no show on Monday. You'll be listening to alternate programming, you poor buggers. That's what's going on. So that'll be happening on Monday morning. And then we'll be returning to the airwaves on Tuesday because I'll be back down here on top of the world in Homer by then, and we'll be all good to go. All right. So that's the housekeeping for today. Tomorrow, Firearms Friday, off on Monday, back on Tuesday. Live it, love it, learn it. All right, let's get to this. We got a lot of stuff to talk about. And I'm all right. Melissa Burnett is our guest. She is a friend and cohort, and also the
I think he disappeared. Hi, guys.
There we go. Everything went snap. I was so angry that the whole thing broke. That's what happened. It was just so. So Melissa joins us this morning to talk about education, and we welcome her. Good morning. How are you, dear?
I'm good. How are you? Good morning. Good morning, friends.
Yeah, no, I'm doing okay. So Melissa, you're here in your non-official capacity, right? I just want to
I
make sure.
am. Yeah, I'm here as a private citizen. I'm speaking in my capacity as such, though I have been told that because I'm the president of the school board, that doesn't matter. But I'm here on my own private, my own thoughts. These are
Oh,
not the thoughts of the board.
it doesn't matter because you're the president.
I've been
Wow.
told that.
Yeah, well, okay. I can't keep
I'm like,
track.
I respect that, but at the same time, I am allowed my own opinions. So
Yeah,
I
yeah.
will say these are not the opinions of the board as a whole.
Okay. All right. So we've got that out of the way because Savannah Fletcher, she's looking for new stuff. So before we dive into the specifics of Fairbanks, you have been listening to my rantings and my diatribe for the last 45 minutes on this. What's your take on the what happened in the legislature? And I know because I know that you're supportive of an increase, but you are also rational enough to understand the problems with arithmetic and mathematics and things
Yeah.
like, how do we pay and all that. So what's your hot take on what happened in the legislature yesterday? And what does it mean overall? What do you think?
Yeah, well, I actually happen to have spent the last, I don't know, many days watching it on Gavel, Alaska. I've been watching everything unfold and, man, craziness. I am supportive of an increase. I have not shied away from that. I have not kept that a secret from anybody. I do think that school districts need an increase. Now, to say that we've never had one, again, that's false rhetoric, or, that's false. We have seen increases. We have gotten funding every single year so far. While it's not inside that BSA like people would like it to be, it still has been that we have gotten funding every single year. I think that this HB 69, it's kind of been railroaded, in my opinion. It's gone really fast. And while I am in favor of trying to get funding quicker so that districts have an answer, because we all do this budget process at the same time. This has been basically everybody in the minority, everybody on the right has been shut down. Anytime that a question has been raised, there's a point of order. Anytime somebody brings up a solution, like props to Representative McCabe, with bringing up the question of consolidating districts, completely shut down right off the bat. And that was pretty much the rhythm of it. Everything that they tried to put in policy wise, or that tried to get in there that maybe the governor would have a taste for, so that when this got to his desk, that it wouldn't necessarily be a straight up veto. Everything was shot down. And the PFD question, that was a point of order. Will Stapp, my hats off to Representative Stapp. I loved when Representative Himshoot called him Stapposaurus, because it's kind of what he's been, but in a good way, because he's asking that tough question. How do we pay for this? And now it's in the Senate. And I just hope that the senators will look at this and put some policy in it. There's got to be something. We don't have the money to fund this, and it's DOA. That's how I see it. This is dead on arrival as soon as it gets to the governor's desk, if they send it in like it is. I hear rumblings of the 680 number, maybe 720. I think that's palatable for the governor, and I think that's maybe where this goes at the end.
So you suspect that when it hits the governor's desk that he will veto it, or veto it down to the proper number or whatever.
Yeah.
In that regard. Well, I'm again, the games that get played in the legislature are fascinating and frustrating at the same time, to watch that, all these policy debates and to watch the minority get riddled full of bullets over and over and over again, when trying to put in what I thought some of these are, simple, well-considered policy goals, is a little shocking. I mean, you're in the industry, you're part of this whole thing. I mean, were any of the things that they put forward, in your opinion, were any of the things that they put forward, were they onerous on the school district? Were they something that, would have been a deal breaker for you?
No, honestly, I think many of the things deserved a lot more conversation, but I think they were all legit, in my opinion. They were all legit amendments. They were all things that I think had something to them and deserved a discussion instead of a point of order or an objection, which was basically everything. It was ridiculous to see the shutdown. And when I was in Juneau, I spent 3 days there. And excuse me, I'm dying over here. The 3 days I spent there, the one thing that came out of offices from the minority was they won't even let us have a conversation. And then when we would go to those members and say, hey, they really want a conversation, it was bah, 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 bah. No, but it's ridiculous. You don't get anywhere without a conversation.
Well, and that's the biggest part here is that they don't want to have the conversation. The as I've been saying since the very beginning, their to paraphrase their combined reaction, it was shut up and give us our money and leave us alone. I mean, essentially, no, we're not going to talk about. We'll talk about policy later, which we know will never. I mean, based on past performance, we know that will never happen. We've had those promises before, on not just on education, but on tons of other. Just give us the money, and we'll figure out the rest later. And of course, you never go back and revisit it. It
No.
never gets done.
And I'll even, I'll tell you this. I know that I am one of two people on my board who do agree that we've got to have the policy with this. A lot of people out there will agree that you do the funding, then you do the policy, but not with this governor. I actually had a representative, and I like this representative a lot. I have a lot of respect for him, but he literally looked me in the face and said, I would rather see the districts get nothing than do policy for a governor who's out the door. Word for word.
Okay.
That
I mean, judging something on its merits versus whether or not a person is you like or is going to be there, that seems a bit counterintuitive. I mean, wait, Melissa, isn't this for the children? I
Yeah.
mean, isn't this what this is? Because this is what we kept hearing about, right? It's for the children, it's for this, it's for that. But what it looks like from the outside, from a lot of our points of views and a lot of our opinions, is it looks like it just guaranteed as a jobs bill for people in the education industry. And if the kids don't do well, oh well. I mean, if the kids are their achievements not there, I mean, we're 51 out of 53. We've fallen. That's that should be the first thing on everybody's lips when this happens. And instead it's money. And don't talk about policy. We don't want to talk about something's fundamentally broken in our education system, not just in Alaska, but across the country. I mean, this has been a national conversation going on. We spend more than any other industrialized nation in the world on education per student education, and yet nationwide we're, I don't know, what are we, 20th or 25th or something amongst industrialized nations, Western nations, and I mean something's wrong, and we can't have a discussion on what's wrong and try and fix it.
Yeah, I think that that's a little crazy. There's plenty of things you can do to fix it. There's plenty of things that you can start implementing. I don't know what the direct answer is on how we get up there and climb and what policies it is, but it starts with things like the cell phone bill. We got to get those cell phones out of the hands of the kids while they're inside the classroom. When they're inside that classroom, they need to be focused on learning. And they need to be focused on their schoolwork. And when I walk into a classroom, which I have been very busy this year visiting many, many, many schools, my boss at work may have even gotten irritated with me because of how much time I have been spending in schools this year. And when I walk into these classrooms of middle schoolers and high schoolers, they've got their phones right there and they're texting and they're, they've got their assignment pulled up, but they're over here on their phones. That's one thing. And people, I've had people come at me and say, well, this doesn't need to be a law. Well, the law is directing districts to get a policy in place, which many are already doing. Fairbanks, we're already working on that. We've already put it through one reading. We're getting ready to bring it back around so we can implement it by next year. So that's where you begin with one. But then the other steps are listening to legislators that are saying, hey, we need to implement some other policy things that will help target this. Targeted funding, why not that? For every increase in this level of reading, we'll fund here. I don't see what's wrong with that.
Right.
Why we can't come to the
Wait a
middle there.
second. That's a meritocracy, and we can't have that. Okay, we
I'm
can't.
sorry.
Yeah, you cannot have meritocratic. No, I'm sorry. You can't reward good results. That's just not how government works. Melissa Burnett is our guest here with us today as a private citizen, although she is the president of the Fairbanks North Star Borough School Board. We're going to continue with her here in just a second. We're going to be back with more. Don't go anywhere. The Michael Duke Show, common sense, liberty-based, free-thinking radio. We return right after this.
Running on 100% pure beard power. Oh, also some coffee. We dip our beard in coffee.
Ha, nice beard.
The Michael Duke Show.
Okay, Melissa Burnett is our guest. Kevin says, what is fundamentally broken is the removal of parents from the education mix. The state or schools are not and should not be a substitute for parents. In reality, though, this is just a symptom of the problem, which is the lack of parenting. And to me, I agree. This has always been something that I've tried to bring up over and over and over again, is parental involvement is critical, absolutely critical. But I don't know how to motivate that. I do not know how to get more parental engagement. There are parents who are engaged. There are plenty of parents who are engaged. And those are the ones that I think whose students are doing really well. I mean, I've always said that homeschooling is the ultimate expression of parental involvement. I mean, that's the ultimate, a teacher pupil ratio is 1-to-1, right? In the thing. But the problem is that there's a ton of teachers or a ton of parents out there who are treating the education system and the school system like a glorified babysitter. They drop them off and they're like, it's your problem. Just go do it. And then they get them home and they probably don't follow up on their homework, or maybe they do, but it's just like, it's like in passing. They're so busy living their lives, trying to make a living or doing whatever, that they're just not paying attention. And then the problem with those students without the parental involvement is that they then drag down a portion, because they take a lot more time probably, and a lot more effort, and a lot more, there's disciplinary issues and all kinds of stuff, because they know there's no repercussions from their folks, because hey, it's it's a babysitter, and that causes problems for the other students. So it's a ripple effect. So how do we encourage that parental involvement, Melissa? What do we do?
I have a few ideas. Starting with making it easier for parents to be at the schools, which can be done a few different ways. We have talked about doing things like having lists of opportunities for parents to be able to come into the schools to help with projects or whatever that maybe don't require such an extensive volunteer background check. That's a big thing for our district, is parents have, anybody who wants to volunteer in our schools has to go through the same background check a teacher does. Which is very rigorous, which can be kind of off-putting for a parent who just wants to come in and maybe laminate some schoolwork for a teacher, right? So there's a few different things that we're looking at in Fairbanks, at least, that we can do to make it more welcoming, more events, more I don't know that a brick and mortar could put the requirement there. I would like to have that conversation, because I would be in favor of some sort of volunteer requirement. I think that's what makes charter schools successful, is the fact that you have that requirement there, that
Absolutely.
parents have to be involved.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think that is one of the key and cornerstones of the success of the charter movement, of the Montessori, of the homeschooling. That all has to do with the parental involvement. I don't see why you shouldn't have a requirement in brick and mortar public schools that the parents have to engage in X number of hours or be part. I mean, because that would, if you're, I mean, I don't know, it probably wouldn't pass constitutional muster because, you're required to provide an education, whether the parents, I guess, participate or not. But there has to be something.
Yeah.
This is not just a teacher problem. This is not just an administrative. There's a holistic problem here that's got little bits and pieces everywhere. The parental component is a big component. The administration overhead is a big component. Some of the teachers in the curriculum are a component, but there's no one magic bullet here. We've got to fix all this stuff.
Yeah, no, I agree. Parental involvement is huge. And bottom line is parents need to be involved with their kids, get them off their tablets and phones and interact with them more at home to back up what's happening at school.
This show sucks. BS blaming it on parents. They're laughing at this show all the way to back. This show sucks. Why are you here, Henry? I mean,
You suck.
I suck hard.
You suck.
I know. Well, it's good. I suck in a good way, I guess. I don't know if there is such a thing, but here we go.
The Michael Duke Show. Not your daddy. Wait, sorry. Not your daddy? Ooh, not your daddy's talk radio. Huh. Whew. I was scared for a second. Thought we were going down. Here's Michael Dukes and the show.
Yeah, I'm not your daddy, nor do I play one on TV. Because apparently I suck. All right. We're going to continue here. We've gotten Melissa's take on a lot of this stuff. We were just talking during the break about parental involvement and how it's critical. And there's a portion of parents out there that just are not engaged. It's just a fact. I'm not blaming anybody. It's just there's a portion of parents out there, and whether they're not engaged through choice or they're not engaged because they're single parents or they're so busy or, whatever it is, that are treating school like it's a daycare. The students that have the best, I think if you went and looked at all the students who have the best outcomes, probably one of the common threads through all of those students would be the fact that they're completely engaged parents, right? They are engaged. And we talked about how charter schools are a big example of that, Melissa, and how homeschool, things like that. And so we were just talking about how do we encourage and how do we guarantee parental involvement? I don't think there's any guarantee, but how do we encourage the parental involvement in those in this area? How do we do it? Is there a way to require it, or what do you think? What do you think has to happen?
I would be in favor of that conversation. I would definitely like to see a requirement. I know there'll be a lot of people out there going, oh, you can't do that. And I don't know that you can or not, but I would be in favor of that conversation and seeing where that went. I am in favor of, there are some things we're talking about on the board here in Fairbanks about things that we can do. We're in the strategic planning process right now. And one of the big things that came up actually in the strategic planning was, how do we get parents involved? And so we're discussing things like making it easier for parents to volunteer. Right now, parents do have to go through the same background checks that teachers do. And not all the time is that needed. Like if a parent needs to come in and just laminate some stuff or help make copies or drop some stuff off or whatever, maybe that's lists of things that are at the front desk or at the front door, maybe sent by email. I don't know how that looks, but we're discussing many of those components to try to get families more involved.
Yeah, no, I mean, first of all, you're doing background checks on them for being parents. I mean, at some point you got to be like, okay, I understand protecting the kids. Don't get me wrong, but
yeah. And that's why we want to look at it and see what we can do to make that easier. Because we understand the background checks is for people who will have interaction with the children,
right.
But that's not always the case.
All right, well, let's shift gears here and talk specifically about Fairbanks. Fairbanks schools, they're struggling like many of the other school districts with deficit spending. It's not unsurprising. It's not unexpected. We knew that this was happening. We knew that this was coming. This is what gets me about school districts and school boards is that they know that they're always building their budgets based on the best case scenario, never on the worst case scenario. They're always writing the budgets, in deficit, essentially. And there have been some cuts and some pullbacks, but it's never to the point of we know how much this is our guaranteed amount of money, and we're going to build a budget based on that. And then, of course, the first thing that happens is the things that get cuts are the things that get the most press, right? They're the music programs and the sports programs, the things that keep kids engaged and give them a reason to go to school. Those are the first thing that gets cut because I believe personally that it's because it's punishment for the public for not paying attention. Oh, you're not paying attention. We're going to cut this. And so now you'll go and cry to the legislature that we need more stuff or we'll close the school, et cetera.
Well, and contradictory to that, and I respect your opinions, Sir Dukes. I sit here and I do this, and I've been doing it for 3 years now. And I promise you that's not how that works out. But those levers are the easier ones to pull, when it comes to cuts that you look at. Fairbanks cut sports a long time ago. All sports in Fairbanks are basically parental pay now. We have a small portion of funding that's still left in our activities budget that pays for the activities coordinator, and some very small fees when it comes to like insurance for the players and court fees and stuff like that. It's a very small fund, just barely over $1 million. So all sports now in Fairbanks are pay to play. That was just an easier lever to pull 4 years ago. Then you start looking at the other levers, that you talk about. Again, it's not that it's, let's do this because this is political. It's more of a, what can we do that's easy that maybe we could implement back and not harm too much, but then, impact versus reality. I have that conversation all the time. Impact versus reality, or reality versus impact.
Right. Well, but you can see what my point is here, because that's the perception, whether it's intentional or not, because we've seen government do this for years. Tony Knowles, I remember we were in deficit, and Tony Knowles, first thing he does is he cuts $500,000 to keep the road open to Central or North Slope, or he stops plowing roads. And I'm like, you're $500,000 short, and you got $500,000 to pave a parking lot in the back of the DOT yard. Maybe we should talk about shuffling some money from the Capitol. Maybe we should do something like that. But instead, it's the high visibility things that because it gets people upset, right? We saw that during the discussion on school closures and things like that. But the problem is that the overall problem is that we have declining enrollment.
Yeah.
That's really isn't that the crux of what's going on here? I mean, you guys had a 16% drop in enrollment in a single year.
656 students. It was crazy.
Yeah, that's a big hurt. I mean, that'll put a hitch in your get along right there.
Well, and if you go and watch our budget sessions and all of our work sessions right now, we're actually budgeting and preparing for another hit, because we don't know. And so we're preparing ourselves to lose another 175 to 200 students for next school year. And that's our reality, is our enrollment is dropping, and it's kids going to correspondence programs, but it's also kids leaving the state. That was actually the majority of what we saw, is kids leaving the state. And so it's, how do you correct that? Well, it's consolidating, it's closing schools. That, yes, it had to do with budget, that it was helpful for our budget, but that's direct enrollment. We have all these schools with all of these classrooms that are just sitting there open. We need to right size our district to match what our student load is. And so that's what we did. And that's how you handle that.
Well, and that's the problem when you have schools that are at 40, 50, 60% capacity. You're still paying the same cost to keep the schools open and everything else, but you're only utilizing a portion of them. The consolidation to bring those schools up to 80 or 90% capacity is one of the first levers that should be pulled. And it's hard because there's a lot of emotion in the community about, my favorite school, or, my kids have gone to this school for years or whatever. But the bottom line is it's strictly a monetary issue. And until we turn around the enrollment problem, it's going to be this is going to be a continuous thing. And the enrollment problem is not just out-migration. I mean, out-migration is a portion of it for sure, but there's also the free market issue where people are deciding, and COVID, you can thank COVID for this, that people are deciding that we're going to do it ourselves because they're dissatisfied with what they're getting in the public schools. How do you address that?
Well, we address that with policy. We address that with parental involvement. We address that with it's everything we've already talked about, things that we're already working on. People talk about policy. Well, we're doing the cell phone thing, and that was before the state brought it forward. That is helpful, though. I will say the state doing that is super helpful for districts because it now gives the districts who maybe were afraid to do it a little bit of backbone to be able to do it. And I saw a comment earlier talking about, well, then take phones away from school board members and assembly members and all that too. I don't disagree. I 100% don't disagree. I will refrain from bringing too much up, but phones are a problem. And that's for adults too.
Yeah, no, I mean, again, the phones, I mean, that's not a problem that I had when I was in high school, right?
Right, me neither.
We didn't even have computers when I was in high school, right? I think there was one computer lab that had like 3 computers for the whole school. So I understand that for sure. So what's the biggest challenge you're facing right now? You guys had a $16 million deficit, I think, was that right to begin with? And you guys are going to you've made some cuts, you've done some things. How much have you succeeded in that? And I mean, where are you sitting now?
Well, it's a little bit of a mess.
She's laughing. That's not a good sign when you laugh.
No, it's we're gonna have a very long work session on Monday to hopefully come to a consensus on some of this. So we had 5 schools on the chopping block. We only closed 3. Our biggest issue right now is surrounding that. We have a particular group here in Fairbanks that are not too fond of the fact that we closed down their school. And so they're trying to make it a charter. And so we're having that fight at the same time that we're having our budget fight, which we are still having to climb out of a pretty big deficit. The school closures and everything would have brought us down pretty far, but then we didn't close all 5. So our deficit is still around $8.7 million that we got to climb out of. And we have not reached any type of consensus on how that works. I will give props to the board as they have come up with some pretty unique ideas on how to get there. And I will answer a question in the chat coming up in a little bit here.
Okay.
I got to quit reading that.
No, quit reading the chat. Don't read the chat. Don't read the chat. So I guess my first question is, why, if they want to create a charter school, if they're so heated about the fact that you want to close their school, wouldn't it be better for them? I mean, if they want to have that involvement and they want to do that, wouldn't that be, because again, you have a charter waiting list, don't you? I mean, there's still an opportunity. You could fill a school. Why would it be a fight, I guess, in that regard?
Yeah, so the fight is actually around our policy. I'm not against the charter. I want to make that very clear. I am very much in favor of charters and anybody who thinks that they can get one up and running and wants to put it together and do this. And this group of people is actually they're very talented. They're a bunch of lawyers and doctors and education specialists, and the charter application is a very good one. And they are working very hard. The issue is we have a massive deficit still, and we are working through how to solve that deficit. We have a policy that says that we hear charters by October 1st, and then that gives them the year to go through the process, us time to do the work sessions, and then send it off to the state. If we approve or not, then we send it to the state. And it's our budget right now it is very, very hard to figure out how we would add the charter school, depending on what the enrollment would be. If it's 300, it's going to be $2.5 million on top of our deficit. And so trying to figure out how to budget for that is very difficult right now. And so we have a good majority of the board that it's let me speak for me. I'm not going to speak for the board right now. So for me, we went through this process of closing these schools. We went through this. It took a whole year, and really, if you back up, it's been 2 or 3 years that we've been having these discussions. And we closed these schools due to maintenance, due to budget, due to enrollment loss, several different things. For this one school, it made sense to me that that would be the school. It was on the list twice. It was the one school we were going to close before. I'm not against the families who want to start this charter. I just question on what this does for our policy. If we blow the policy out of the water and we say, okay, we'll scrap the policy, we'll hear this right now, what does that do for our other policies is where my head is. But at the same time, I fight myself hard because I'm not against the charter. And if they want to do this, I'm in favor of that. And so I fight myself tooth and nail with this every single day. It's a very hard one.
Is there a component of self-funding in charter where the parents have to pony up something as well?
So there is something there. Yes. I don't know all the specifics behind it. But I do know that to get them up and running and to get it all solidified, it does fall on the district.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we'll continue this discussion. We're up against the break, so let's take a quick one, and we will be back here in just a moment. Melissa Burnett is our guest. We'll continue this discussion. The Michael Duke Show, common sense, liberty-based, free thinking radio. We return with more right after this.
Listened to by more staffers in Juneau than any other show because their bosses told them to. And after what they just heard, oh man, they're going to be pissed.
You're a bad, bad man.
The Michael Duke Show.
Okay, Melissa Burnett.
That's how I feel after what I just said. Oh man, they're gonna be pissed.
Oh, they're gonna be pissed. It is what it is. All right. So did you want to answer the question in the chat room? Just because I didn't want to. What do you got? What do you got to say there?
Yeah. Well, I pretty much answered why it's a fight. It's basically the funding piece. You've got a majority of the board that wants to honor the policy. It's also the policy piece. We have a big majority of the board that says follow policy. I will say, because of how contentious this is, I have tried to let the administration and superintendent and everybody just handle this and work through it and kind of give the board advice on how to go. But everything has become so crazy. The governor's office has actually been reaching out to me to settle some of the crazy things that are going on. And at the end of the day, the board on Monday will have to decide what direction we're going to go. And so we can't actually make a decision in a work session, but we can come to a consensus. And so this will be a topic during our long work session on Monday to where the board can move forward with a consensus on where to go and how to handle it. Like I said, I'm not against the charter. I saw Representative McCabe ask, why not offer the charter before closing? It's, again, that's a funding piece. Charters do affect a district when it comes to enrollment, because whereas a school brick and mortar, the BSA comes in with a charter, it passes through and it goes directly to the charter and they do what they need to do with it. So it's a very complicated conversation.
Right.
And again, I'm not against it. I am in favor of it. It just depends on when we hear it.
I'm I'm wondering because if you had 300 students at $2.5 million, that's $8,000 a student. So if the parents were serious about it and they wanted to do it, maybe they would pony up, and pay for that cost. I don't understand what the costs are, and we don't have time to get into it today, but I'd be interested to know why it costs 2.5 million to stand up something like that. That's a whole nother show though.
It is. It's a whole nother show. I do have the answers to that, but it's a big, long process and a whole nother show. I will say the parents from the APC for this charter are really great. And
Mhm.
they are actually trying to come up with solutions so that it does not cost the district so much.
Yeah. But again, anytime you can put a charter school in there, that would, I think that would show that, do well for the achievement of the district overall. All right. Policies are words written on paper. Policies can be changed. And that's true. Rules are meant to be broken, right? I mean, there's an exception to every rule. I mean, whatever metaphor we want to use or whatever, it's true. And if the policy is not working and the policy is is counter indicative of good results, then yeah, maybe we should consider that. And like I said, if these parents are serious about it and they want the school that badly, then if they had to pony up $8,000 a kid to be able to do it, that would make sense to me. If that's how they want to continue to put those things forward. All right. We're about 2 minutes out here. So Melissa, I want to kind of give you your head in the last segment here to talk about the policies and the things that you want to talk about in this. But this is an overall problem that we've been facing for a long time. And it's really just kind of coming to a head now. If you get a $680 BSA or 720 or the 1,000, is that going to fix your guys' shortfall?
No, not
No.
at all. It helps, but no, it doesn't fix it. But the 680, 720, it either way, it puts us, where we need to start heading. The 1,000, it would be nice because that puts us in an even better situation going forward. I don't think we see a reality where that's possible because we can't.
I'm sorry, what would the BSA have to be? What would the increase have to be to cover your $8.7 million shortfall?
Well, to be completely honest, it's going to be up around that $1,400 number. That's not a lie. But that's not happening. You can't pay for that.
No, that's a problem for me.
Yeah.
And the question is part of this the hold harmless? I mean, I know you guys are running on this hold harmless for the next year or so. It's going to get worse because when that hold harmless drops off, your deficit's going to go even higher, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, we're going to give you your head here and let you steer the bus in the next segment. We'll see where it goes from here. I'm interested to hear what you have to say. But the fact that a whole BSA, this whole increase would not fix your problem, to me, is indicative of it's indicative of a larger problem for sure. All right, we got to go. The Michael Duke Show, common sense, liberty-based, free thinking radio. Like, share, subscribe, ring the bell. Let's do this thing. Here we go. No, I was too early.
The Michael Duke Show. Seriously humorous with a pinch of intellect. Sorry. That is humorous. Here's Michael Dukes.
Because clocks are hard. That's why. Clocks are hard. We're going to continue on here. Melissa Burnett, our guest. Melissa, I wanted to give you this last segment because you'd wanted it. You'd wanted to come on the show. I don't know if we've covered what you'd wanted to cover, but I wanted to give you the opportunity to bring up anything else or talk about it. I will mention that right during the break, right before we came back, I asked her, would this BSA increase that's proposed fix the problem? This $1,000, which is, we can't pay for it, but she said, no, it wouldn't fix the problem. Okay.
No, it helps, but no, it doesn't fix the problem. And I know that that's shocking and I understand completely we can't pay for it. But really what I wanted to come on, I've been actually I watch your show every single morning. I usually jump in on the second half because I don't
Right.
do the mornings no more. I do the afternoon drive now. So I don't gotta be up that early.
Right.
But
Slacker.
yeah, I know, right? But I just had been watching a lot of how do we pay for it? How do we pay for it? How do we pay for it? And nobody ever has an answer. Well, I do, and I appreciate Representative McCabe's answer the other day when I said this in the chat. Cut the Department of Corrections, and I will stay on that horse for as long as I can because, and I understand where Representative McCabe was. We did this to ourselves, right? The things that we pay for. Representative Stapp also did a really good job of explaining how it all works to me. We do have to cover costs of inmates who probably never saw a doctor before in their life, right? When they become part of our system. But I think that there is a lot of money to find in the Department of Corrections. We are spending anywhere between 47,000 to 50 grand an inmate right now. If my numbers aren't off too much, I think that's about what we spend. And we spend about 20 per student. And while yes, that's still a lot, I feel like that's offsetting and we're spending so much on prisoners when we should be taking care of our own. And I have a lot of strong feelings about that. I have a Department of Corrections background where I spent a lot of time at Jackson Penitentiary when I was going through my academies and schooling and all that. And you want to find some money to help the state needs to start making hard cuts. And some of those hard cuts come from the Department of Corrections. We've got iPads, or maybe not iPads, but tablets. Senator Kawasaki sent out this email a couple weeks back, and this email just chapped me so hard because there was a picture of an inmate with a tablet. And when we have all of these problems in the state and the question is coming to cut the PFD, cut the PFD, cut the PFD. No, don't give iPads to inmates. And even if you don't want to give that money to schools, there's other places in the state that could use that money and that funding.
He's right, though. We are obligated to
Yeah.
once you put him and incarcerate him, you're obligated for a certain amount, and that's problematic. The bigger question in this goes back, and I'm not saying that there couldn't be some cuts in the Department of Corrections. I mean, I for one am one of those guys that was like, yeah, why don't we just find the lowest common bidder and ship them out there instead of taking care of them here? I mean, and I know that's not popular, but hey, you pays your, you do's the crime, you do the time kind of thing.
We used to do that.
Yeah, we used to do that. I know, but there was a lot of questions about fairness to inmates and families and everything else. But at the same time, you did the crime. You
don't do bad things.
Yeah, it's one of those.
I'm sorry if I'm very harsh about that, but you don't want to be away from your family. You want a tablet. You want these things. Don't go to jail. Don't go to prison.
Yeah,
don't do bad things. Don't murder people.
Don't do crime. Don't do crime.
Do crimes.
Don't do crime, kids. It's not a good thing. But I want to reverse for just a second and go back to what you were saying earlier. If it would take a $1,400 increase to the BSA to fix the problem, the $1,000 is not going to do it. The $680 is not going to do it. The $720 is not going to do it. Isn't that indicative of a larger problem? Isn't that indicative of a larger, planning problem, budgeting problem? Just kind of we're not doing. I mean, shouldn't we be going back to saying, okay, well, then we start with zero-based budgeting and we go from there instead of where we're at right now? Doesn't that paint kind of a tough picture? Because it's not just Fairbanks, it's every district.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you. I don't have answers to where we are and how they got here. I've only been here for 3 years, but I will say that these conversations should have started a long time ago. The consolidating of schools, the different types of cuts and different types of way we spend. There was a time when the district had a very healthy fund balance, and we had a superintendent that, whatever was told by the assembly at the time and whatever, we got told we had too much in our fund balance and we needed to spend it down to statutory limits. Well, all they heard was spend it down. And so here we are. And then COVID hits and then all these things happen. And it's, money is not the answer. But also not funding it is not the answer. And so there needs to be a medium, and the medium is policy. There needs to be something implemented. Also, you got to find those cuts to make it work, and it's not the PFD, but you got to do the policies if you want the conversation on the funding. And that's where I personally will always stand. If you want it to happen, you got to come in over here as well.
And one of the things that I've harped on for a long time, we've got about 4 minutes here, but one of the things that I've harped on for a long time is the growth of the administrative state inside the education system. I mean, when I went to Lathrop High School, there was 40 teachers, 38 teachers probably, and there were 8, I think, administrators, administrative staff, from teachers or from guidance counselors to nurses to office staff to principals, etc. And today it's 1 for 1. In some places it's more than 1 for 1. Is that part of the problem that you see as well?
Not here in Fairbanks, but I will also say that this board is asking a lot from administration this year with cuts. Years past, it's been $400,000, $500,000, $600,000 from administration. The board's asking for $1 million this year, straight off the top. So we're not ignoring that call either. As we're doing all of this, administration is getting cut, and it's going to hurt them just as much as it's hurting the students. And so it's a very contentious process we're in right now. It continues Monday. We've got 3 days of meetings, Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. Monday will be a work session. Tuesday and Wednesday, we're going to try to approve this thing, whether we do or not. Will it get pushed off for another week? I don't know. When it comes to the question of why doesn't the district want charters, it's not that we don't want charters. And I think that that's a thing that the board would be okay for me to say, is that we're not against them. Nobody here is against charters. We do want to honor this. And we do want to hear it. The question is right this second with the funding. It's not emotional, it's funding. And we've got to figure that out.
Yeah, well, we need to have a conversation as to why it costs. If the school's already stood up and all they want to do is change it to a charter and maybe throw some money in the kitty from themselves, why would it cost $2.5 million more? But again, that's a whole show that we don't have time to get into today. I definitely want to talk about that. As you said, the boroughs, though, may not be as fan as the charter because they lose that funding. It goes passed through straight to the thing, right? So that's, again, another 300 student decline in enrollment if a charter school is full. So I can see where there's a hesitation there because, again, they want to protect what they have right now, which is, I think, again, part of the problem here is that we've got to anticipate these losses. We know, that next year the deficit's going to be even worse. As you said, we should have been working on this years ago. Why aren't we doing it now? Final thoughts. You got about 90 seconds here, Melissa. I'll give you the floor.
Yeah. I'll end this with, as much as, people don't like what I have to say on charters and whatnot. Bottom line is, being the president of this board during this time has probably been one of the hardest things I've ever done. It is very contentious. It has been the toughest budget season. The closing of the schools, the fight with the charter, all of it. It's been so hard. It's been so complicated. Hats off to the community who has, put everything into this as well. I've gotten thousands of emails, thousands, and that's not an exaggeration. Everybody on this board is just trying to do what they can. I'm trying to do what's best, not only for what I believe on my stances, but also what's good for students and the district. And I am up for re-election this year. So, hey, guess what? I'm running because I'm crazy.
Wow. Yeah. I'm sure Perry's happy with it. I mean, yeah, it'll be fine. It'll be great. Don't worry about it.
Yeah.
Sure, it'll be fine. All right, Melissa Burnett, thank you for coming on board and joining us. I appreciate it. We'll revisit this charter thing. Has got me thinking now. We need to have more conversations about that. Maybe we'll do that here in a week or two and see where we go. Hold the line for a second. Folks, we're out of time. We got to go. Tomorrow's Firearms Friday. I'll be in Fairbanks. John Lott, Chris Chang, Willie Waffle. And then I'm off on Monday because I'm flying. But we'll be back Tuesday after that. Be kind, love one another, live well. The Michael Duke Show. All right. Final bite at the apple there, sister. What,
Frank, yeah, I saw what you commented. I want to say to Frank, I saw him comment that, so I made it a point to not say
not
that.
say cut to the bone. Yeah. Cut to the bone.
I was like, challenge accepted, sir.
Yeah.
I just, I know that things are crazy right now in the Fairbanks area. There's been a couple comments about the stuff that has happened with the board. And yes, there's some contention. There's some things happening. I'm trying to nip it in the bud as hard as I can. We got some antics that are happening, but we're working through it. And yes, it's emotional. Yes, there has been some emotional issues, but we're doing what we can. We'll get through it. The budget will be over here soon. And I don't know. I hope that HB 69 gets some policy attached because, man, that's going to die on the governor's desk.
Yeah, no, it will die on the governor's desk. And I think, again, we've got to address the issue that we can't keep trying to pay for everything with nothing.
Yeah.
That's what they want more and more spending, but there's just no more money. And if you keep driving it up, you'll drive people out.
Yeah.
And that's just going to exacerbate the problem. I mean,
and that's already happening. So
yeah, that's the doom loop. Fairbanks is experiencing the doom loop where people move out and you got fewer people to pay for it. If you want a charter school, break out the checkbook. If you just break it out, if that's what it's going to take. Anyway.
Yeah, I will say the governor's office, they are very receptive to this charter school and trying to help us through it too. So it's, we're working through it. It's not all bad. So.
Yep. All right. Well, thank you for coming on board. We'll visit with you again soon. Thank you, Melissa.
Yep. Thanks, guys.
Folks, we got to go. We're out of time for today. The Michael Duke Show, common sense, liberty-based, free thinking radio. We'll see you tomorrow. Have a good one.
We've shed our terrestrial radio skin, and now we are slimy lizard internet people. It's the Michael Duke Show.